My name is Elena Marsh and I'm 36 years old. It was the night before Thanksgiving, and my brother had just leaned across the turkey and said it loud enough for the whole table to catch. 36 and still no ring. Must be nice, having all that free time to talk to yourself in empty rooms. Everyone laughed. My father laughed longest. My mother, mid-pour with the gravy boat still tilted in her hand, gave that soft, practiced smile of hers and said, "Oh, don't mind him, he's only teasing." I set my fork down. I didn't say anything yet. Here's what none of them knew. I hadn't flown back to Tulsa to sit through another dinner where I was the punchline. I'd flown back because 4 days earlier, a shipping manifest had landed on my desk in Seattle with my signature at the bottom of a licensing agreement I had never laid eyes on. In handwriting that was not mine. Welcome back to Untold Secret Hub. This is where we sit with the women who finally stop apologizing for taking up space. The ones who kept the peace until the peace started eating them alive. Pour something warm, settle in, and if this is your first time here, stay a while. You should know who I am before I tell you what I did, because the two don't match the way my family tells it. I'm a materials engineer. I design acoustic insulation, the foam and fiber composites that go inside recording booths, submarines, even the crash test labs where car companies figure out how to make silence feel safe. I built the compound myself alone, in a lab I paid for out of my own signing bonus. Today, aerospace companies license my formula by the ton. My family knows almost none of this in any way that counts. To them, I'm the daughter who moved to the coast and never came home right, the one whose life is a joke slipped between the cranberry sauce and the pie. I hadn't been back to Tulsa in 3 years. I wasn't planning on coming this year either. Then Ray called me. An old plant foreman who'd worked the composites floor since before I could drive, who still remembered whose formula had saved the place from folding. "Real quiet, Elena," he said. "Your dad's about to sign the whole compound over to an aerospace supplier. Big contract. He keeps telling them the formula's clean. All assigned to the company years back. But I never once saw you in that building signing anything. Did you?" I hadn't. That's when I booked the flight. Not for the turkey. Not for the joke about empty rooms. For a sentence in a contract I needed to see with my own eyes, before anyone got the chance to convince me I'd imagined it. Because a signature is a small thing, until it's yours. And it's yours right up until someone in your family decides it belongs to them too. But all of that was still folded up tight inside me at that dinner table, and nobody at that table had any idea it existed. 2. My little brother Cole was on a roll. He handles sales for the family plant, which mostly means he's very good at deciding which version of events people are allowed to hear. "I'm just saying," he said, forking a bite of stuffing. "Some of us stayed and built something. Elena went off to do. What is it again? Make quiet foam." More laughter around the table. My father set his knife down and did the thing that used to make me feel 8 years old and chosen. He spread his hands like he was blessing the room. This family built something real. 42 years of the Marsh name on that plant. He looked around at everyone, warm, certain. "And whatever any one of us does, we do it for the name. The name comes first. It always has." Everyone nodded like it was scripture. My mother refilled glasses and murmured, "Let's not make the meal about all that," which is what she says anytime something true tries to crawl up off the floor. I felt the old pull. The one I'd been feeling from 3 time zones away for 15 years. To shrink. To laugh along. To make myself small enough that the evening could stay smooth. 15 years of being the quiet room nobody had to hear the hard thing in. I looked at my water glass. I looked at my mother, glowing, ready to toast to nothing in particular. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I didn't shrink. I set my glass down gently, the way you set down something you're finally done carrying. "Don't worry about me," I said. My voice came out even, almost kind. "I've been married for 4 years. The table didn't go quiet so much as go vacuum sealed. I know silence professionally. I can tell you the difference between a room that's simply empty and a room that's holding its breath. This was the second kind. My mother's wine glass froze mid-air, the light still catching the rim. Her smile held a half-second too long. The way a photograph keeps smiling after the person's already left the frame. Cole's fork clinked against his plate. "You're what, married?" I said. 4 years, actually. My father's eyebrows climbed toward a hairline that had been retreating since I was in college. 4 years. He repeated slowly, like a number that refused to add up no matter how he stacked it. You've been married 4 years, and you never told your own family. And there it was, before the plates were even cleared, the pivot. Not as are you happy, not who is he, just how could you keep this from us? As if the keeping were the crime, and not everything that came before it. My mother finally lowered her glass without drinking from it. Her hand wasn't quite steady. Elena, she said, voice gone thin. Why would you hide something like that? I looked around at all of them. These people who had spent over a decade turning my life into a punchline they trotted out at every holiday. And I thought about how you explain that you don't hand your happiness to people who've already shown you exactly what they do with the things you love. But I didn't say that. Not yet, I only said, because I wanted one thing that was only mine. The questions came in a rush, the way they do when people are less curious than caught off guard. What's his name? What does he do? Why isn't he here? Is he ashamed of us? That last one was Cole's, meant to sting, and it would have. Once, I gave them almost nothing. His name is Julian. He's traveling for work. No, he's not ashamed. Yes, it's real. There's a ring, and a house, and a life. And my father leaned back and studied me with an expression I couldn't quite place yet. One that would make ugly sense later. My mother reached over and touched my wrist. We just want to be part of your life, sweetheart, she said, and for one dangerous second I nearly softened, but I hadn't flown in from Seattle and rented a car at the Tulsa airport to be part of anyone's life. I'd come for a document. And sitting there with my mother's hand on my wrist, and my brother's laughter still hanging in the air like smoke, I understood something cold and clean. They thought tonight's surprise was the biggest thing in the room. It wasn't. The biggest surprise was sitting in a manila folder in a filing cabinet across town, with my name forged at the bottom of it, and I was the only person at that table who knew it was there. Let me take you back 12 years. Because you can't understand the folder without understanding the formula. When I was 24, Marsh Composites was 3 months from closing its doors. I'd already left home at 19. Left the noise, left the smallness. But I still drove back on weekends then. Still believed a family was something you could fix with enough of your own hands. The plant made ordinary insulation foam, the kind you've probably never thought about twice, and by then nobody was buying it. So I spent a winter in the back lab and built something new. A layered polymer weave that could absorb sound abs and vibration without adding weight. The kind of material aerospace companies were desperate for and hadn't found yet. I mixed the first batch myself in a 5-gallon bucket at 2 in the morning. I logged it in my own lab notebook under my own initials, the way you'd sign the inside of a violin where nobody would ever look. That formula saved the company. Orders came back. The Marsh name stayed on that building for another decade because of a compound a 24-year-old girl cooked up in a cold back room. And then, slowly, the way these things happen, the story got retold without me in it. It became the Marsh formula. It became Dad's breakthrough. I let it. I told myself credit didn't matter, that I had my own career now, my own city, my own quiet. I told myself letting them have it was a kind of love. That was the lie I'd been living inside. Smooth as a sealed room, and now that same formula, my formula, was the crown jewel of a contract worth more money than my father had ever touched in his life. And somewhere in a folder, my name was pretending to have signed it all away. The next morning I drove to the plant, told everyone I just wanted to see the old place before the holiday rush. That part was even a little true. The lobby looked more prosperous than it ever had when I was a kid. Fresh paint. A glass-walled conference room. A brass plaque with the founding year and my father's name pressed into it like a coat of arms. There were visitors, men in good coats, a woman with a leather portfolio. The unmistakable careful politeness of people deciding whether to spend a great deal of money. My father was in his element, walking them past the display wall. Everything you see, we own outright, he was saying. Every formula, every patent, all of it assigned to the company, clean as a whistle, years ago. We keep it in the family. The woman wrote something down. I stood near a rack of holiday cards, feeling the floor tilt slightly, because I knew. At least one of those signatures had never been given. If you've ever walked back into a house that shrinks you the second you cross the threshold, you already know that sound. A room full of confident talk about a thing you made, and you're not part of the conversation. Stay with me, it gets quieter before it gets loud. I asked, casually, if I could look at the IP paperwork. Framed it as professional curiosity, one engineer admiring how a clean assignment gets structured. Cole intercepted me before I finished the sentence. He'd always had good instincts for exactly the wrong moment. Why would you need to see that? Arms crossed, smile bright and hard. You don't even work here, Elena. You haven't in years, it's kind of not your business. I said I was only curious. He tilted his head. See, this is the thing about you. You disappear for 15 years, you show up with a secret husband, and now you want to poke around the deal that's setting this whole family up for life. People might think you're jealous. He laughed, performing it for the 2 employees within earshot. My mother, passing with a tray of coffee for the guests, caught the tail end and didn't even slow down. Oh, don't mind him, Elena, he's only teasing. There it was again, the little phrase that turns every knife into a joke, and every joke into your fault. I'd heard it my whole life. It's a spell. It makes things disappear. It had disappeared my hurt for 36 years, and it was about to be asked to disappear a felony. I smiled and let it go. I said something about needing air. Because I'd realized asking permission was the mistake. You don't ask the person who forged your name whether you're allowed to look at the forgery. You stop asking. You start looking. 2 Ray found me by the loading dock, breath fogging in the cold. You didn't hear it from me? He said, and led me to a side office where a diligence binder sat open on the table, tabbed and photocopied for the buyer's team. He stood in the doorway watching the hallway while I flipped to the tab marked Intellectual Property Assignments. There it was, a 1-page agreement transferring all rights to the composite formula from the inventor to Marsh Composites Inc., dated 6 years earlier. Signed on the line marked Inventor, Elena Marsh. I've signed my name maybe 100,000 times. I know its rhythm the way I know my own pulse. This wasn't it. Close. Someone had a sample to copy from, but the A looped the wrong way, and the whole signature sat too flat on the line, without the slight uphill lean my hand has made since middle school. Someone had practiced. Someone had studied how I write my name, until it was good enough to fool a stranger. Not good enough to fool me. I photographed both sides in good light. Then I checked the date against my own life, because a signature is a claim about where a person was, and that can sometimes be proven. 6 years ago, that April, I hadn't been anywhere near Oklahoma. I'd been in Lisbon, presenting at an international materials conference. My name printed in the program, my face in the group photo on stage, my passport stamped. My hotel invoice tied to my own card. I remembered it because the whole week it had rained sideways, and I'd given the best talk of my career to a room that finally took me seriously. On the day this document claimed I'd sat in Tulsa and signed away the best thing I ever built, I was 5,000 miles away, in the rain, being taken seriously by strangers. This wasn't a filing error. Nobody misplaces a signature onto a page. This was a decision made by a person with a pen, who chose to put my name where my consent should have been. Because it was easier than asking, or because he already knew what I'd say. I closed the binder exactly as I'd found it. I thanked Ray with my eyes, not my mouth, because his job was in that building. And I walked back into the lobby, where my father was laughing with the buyers, and I smiled at him and thought, I know now. And you don't know that I know. That evening I dried dishes while my mother washed, because I needed to know how deep it went. My mother has never once in her life been able to hold on to something she thinks is nice. Funny, I said, keeping my voice at the temperature of small talk. I don't even remember signing anything over to the company, back when. Her hands slowed in the suds. Oh, sweetheart, you didn't have to worry about all that, she said. Warm. Reassuring, like she was soothing a child out of a nightmare. Your father took care of the paperwork. You were always so busy with your chemistry. He said, why make you fuss over forms when it all stays in the family anyway? He handles everything. She smiled, proud of the arrangement, entirely unaware she'd just confirmed it. My father had signed my name. My mother knew, in the soft way she knows everything and questions nothing, and to her it wasn't a crime. It was a courtesy. A man lifting a burden off his daughter's shoulders. The name comes first, she added, drying her hands, echoing him without realizing she was quoting anyone at all. I finished the last plate and asked, lightly, whether my father was still up. I found him in his study with a scotch and the ledger he still keeps by hand. I shut the door. I didn't raise my voice. I've learned the calmest voice in the room is the one people finally hear. Dad. There's an assignment in the buyer's binder with my signature on it. I never signed it. You did? You didn't flinch. Didn't pretend confusion. He looked up with something close to pride. So you found it. Like I'd solved a puzzle he'd left for me on purpose. You built that formula under this roof, he said. You were a Marsh, using Marsh equipment, in a Marsh building. That compound was always ours. All I did was finish paperwork you were too busy to do. That's not stealing. That's a father cleaning up after his kid, same as I've always done. Forging a signature is a felony, I said quietly. He waved the scotch. Family isn't a crime. You want to know a crime? Walking out and letting the company that raised you go under. And then, for just a second, the armor slipped, and I saw the wound underneath. My father did the same to me. First formula I ever mixed, he put the company's name on it and mine nowhere. I was furious for a year. Then I understood. That's how a family survives. You feed the name, and the name feeds you. He looked up at me. I did you a kindness, Elena. Someday you'll see it. He believed every word. That was the worst part. He wasn't twirling a mustache. He was a man who'd been robbed young, and had decided the theft was a tradition worth passing down. I told him I wanted my name off the deal, that the assignment was void because I'd never given it. That's just the law, I said. Not a threat. That's when the warmth drained out of the room. My father is never colder than the moment you stop being useful to the story he's telling. Off the deal, he repeated. Do you have any idea what closes next week? How many people's jobs are riding on that contract? Ray, the whole floor, your mother's retirement. If you blow this up now over a signature, over your pride, that's not me destroying this family. That's you. Everyone will know it was you. And there it was. The oldest tool in the house, sliding into my hands whether I wanted it or not. The responsibility. Make yourself small so the room stays smooth. Carry what nobody else will carry. I felt the pull of it in my chest like gravity, because I have always been the one who absorbs the cost so nobody else has to. That's the wound, if you want to call it that. Not that I trust too easily. I trust almost no one. It's that I've believed, my whole life. That love means disappearing so everyone else stays comfortable. I didn't answer him. I walked out through the dark house, drove to the plant one more time that night. I told the night guard I'd left a scarf. What I really wanted was to stand in front of the lobby wall, where, mounted under a spotlight like art, hangs the very first molded panel. Sample 0, the one I poured at 2 a.m. when I was 24. A little brass plate beside it reads, the Marsh formula. The innovation that built our future, with the company logo and my father's name as founder. My name is nowhere on it. I lifted the panel off its bracket, heavier than it looks, and turned it over. To the back no buyer ever checks, no plaque ever reaches. And there, in block letters, a 24-year-old scratched into the resin with a stylus, thinking no one would ever see it, SARS EM dice, and under it, a line I'd believed in. Quiet enough to trust. I ran my thumb over the letters. They were mine. They had always been mine. The front belonged to the family, to the name, to the deal, but the back, the part doing the actual work of holding silence together, that was me. Hidden, load-bearing, uncredited. Exactly like the daughter. I stood there in the dark lobby and said it out loud to no one. Forgiveness isn't a signature. I sat in the rental car afterward with my phone in my hand and my husband's name on the screen. I want to be honest about what I almost did. Julian works in structured finance, moves money, and moves the people who move money. In the world where this deal was closing, he isn't a small man. One phone call, and the whole contract could evaporate before anyone signed anything. Or he could sweep in and fund the plant himself, buy my family's gratitude for the rest of their lives. I could have made all of it disappear, or made myself the hero who saved them. Either way, I'd have walked back into that house holding the one card that finally made them see me. I sat with my thumb over his name a long time. If a boundary ever cost you something real, you already know exactly where I was sitting. In a cold car, deciding whether to win the wrong way. I put the phone in the cup holder. Because using Julian to erase this, whether by killing the deal or rescuing it, would have made me exactly what my father was, someone who solves a problem of truth by burying it under power. I hadn't flown home to become my father. I'd flown home to stop being his tradition. The next morning, before deciding anything final, I called an intellectual property attorney in Seattle I'd worked with years back on a licensing dispute. I laid it out plainly. She listened, then gave it to me straight, the way good lawyers do. If you didn't sign it, that assignment is void. Not weak, void. A forged signature transfers nothing, which means legally you never gave up that formula. You still own it. She paused. When the buyer's diligence team asks the inventor to confirm the chain of title, and they will, you'll either have to ratify it or tell the truth. If you tell the truth, they can't close, not the way it's papered now. And the forgery itself, that's a criminal matter here, but that part isn't yours to prosecute or forgive. That part just is. I hung up and sat with it. Here was the thing that changed everything. The power in this room had never been my husband's money, or my family's name. The power was one signature I hadn't given and wouldn't give. Not a weapon I had to go find. Just the truth of where I'd been, and what I'd never agreed to. All I had to do to bring the whole clean, as a whistle story down, was refuse to lie. They could feel something had shifted. Families like mine have an antenna for the exact moment the quiet one stops being quiet. My mother started hovering, refilling my coffee before it was empty, asking if I was sleeping all right, if the marriage was all right, if I was all right. Each question a small hand testing a door. That afternoon she sat beside me on the porch, took my hand, and said the thing she'd clearly been sent to say. Whatever's tangled up between you and your father, please, sweetheart, let's keep it in the family. We don't air these things. That's how we've survived. Keep it in the family. The grown-up version of he's only teasing. Same spell, bigger stakes. Cole was different too. He'd stopped needling me. That evening he brought me tea I hadn't asked for, and sat on the arm of my chair. You know I love you, right? However this shakes out. He'd never once said that to me sober. That's when I understood they'd smelled the danger. And the whole house was rearranging itself around managing me. Softening me. Folding me back in, before I could do something that couldn't be undone. Tuku, my father, called a family meeting for the morning before closing. All of us together, he said, to decide what was best for everyone. It was held at the long dining table, where 3 nights earlier I'd been the punchline. Now I was the head of the table, without anyone admitting they'd put me there. He opened like a man addressing a boardroom, hands folded, voice grave. There's been a paperwork question. We need to resolve it together, the way Marshes always have, quietly, lovingly. Then he slid a fresh page across the table, a pen resting on top. A new assignment, dated this week. Ready for a real signature this time, mine, to paper over the fake one, to make the lie retroactively true. All you have to do, he said gently, is sign what you would have signed anyway, and it's finished. No mess, no strangers. Just family taking care of family. My mother was crying softly. Cole watched me with an intensity that had nothing to do with love. Every person at that table leaned toward me, waiting, and I felt the full weight of the house pressing me toward the smooth thing. The quiet thing. The thing I had done my entire life. I looked at the pen. I looked at the line where my name was supposed to go willingly this time. And I understood, this was the trap the whole machine had been building toward. Not to forge me once, but to make me forge myself, to get me to volunteer for my own erasure and call it love. I didn't sign that morning. I said I needed to think, and I took the page with me, which no one expected. The meeting broke up uneasy, but something else broke open that same day, and it came from Cole. My brother, who handles sales, who is very good at finding out what version of a story is useful, had spent the days since Thanksgiving doing exactly what I should have known he'd do. He'd looked up Julian, found him fast, not a common name, and a fund that isn't invisible if you know where to look. By that afternoon Cole knew exactly who my husband was. He found me in the guest room, his whole face changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen aimed at me before. Calculation, and under it hope. Elena, Your husband? Do you know who he is? Why didn't you say something? This changes everything? And I watched, almost fascinated, as the story the family had told about me for 36 years. Pishable, single, the joke, dissolved in real time and reassembled into something new. I wasn't the punchline anymore. I was the connection, the exit. Suddenly, for the first time worth being nice to. And I knew, with sinking certainty, exactly what they were about to ask me for. Not forgiveness, not even my signature now. Something bigger, dirtier, and dressed up in the language of family. 2. By evening, the whole family knew, and the whole family had rearranged itself around the new information with a speed that would have been impressive if it hadn't been so nauseating. My father poured me the good scotch I'd never once been offered. My mother kept touching my hair. Then they made the ask, in relay. So no single person had to own the whole ugly shape of it. Couldn't Julian just have a word with the buyers? Couldn't he smooth things over? Put in some money so the deal never even needed my messy signature at all? Couldn't he make the whole diligence problem disappear, the way men like him make things disappear? You have this incredible resource, my father said, spreading his hands like a benediction, and you'd let the family sink rather than make one phone call. The name comes first, Elena, it always has. And right now, the name needs you. Third time I'd heard that line that week, and the first time I understood it completely. The name comes first had never meant the family protects its own, it meant the family uses whoever it has to. For 15 years the name had used me by making me a joke. Now it would use me by making me a savior. Same machine, same fuel. Only the price tag on my head had changed. I called Julian that night, but not to ask him to save anyone. I stepped into the cold backyard, under Christmas lights blinking against the snow, and told him everything. The folder, the forgery, Lisbon, the panel, the ask. He was quiet in the way that means he's actually listening. One of 10,000 small reasons I married him. When I finished, he didn't offer to fix it. He knows me better than that. What do you want to do? Not what should we do? What did I want? I told him I wanted to tell the truth and let the truth do whatever the truth was going to do. You should know, he said carefully. If our fund has any exposure to the buyer here, and given the sector, it might, then the second your name's on anything, I have to recuse. Declare the conflict. I can't touch it, and I wouldn't want to. Good, I said. That's exactly right. Because that was the whole difference, wasn't it? My family's instinct was to use every relationship as leverage. My husband's instinct was to step back from a table the second his presence could bend it. One of them thought power meant making problems disappear. The other thought integrity meant refusing to be the reason a problem stayed hidden. I stayed up most of that last night at the little desk in the guest room, and did the least dramatic, most important thing of my life. I wrote a letter, not to my family, but to the buyer's counsel and the diligence accountants. Short, factual, the kind of writing I do for a living. No anger anywhere in it. I am the inventor of the composite formula in question. I did not sign the assignment dated 6 years ago. On that date I was in Lisbon, and I can prove it. I do not ratify that assignment now. I hold the rights to the formula. I printed it. I signed it. My real signature, the one with the uphill lean. The one that's actually mine. I sealed it in an envelope and set it beside my keys, and I sat with what it meant, because I owed myself a clear look at the cost. This letter would not just embarrass my father. It would stop the deal cold. No clean closing. No investor lifeline. Maybe no company at all, in the shape they'd built it. Ray might lose his job. My mother's retirement might shrink. The Marsh name might come off that building. I did not pretend it would be fine. It would not be fine. This was the line, and once I crossed it, there was no version of the morning where I got to be the good daughter again. I put my hand on the envelope in the dark, and I didn't take it away. My mother came to me before dawn. She sat on the edge of the guest bed in her robe, small in the gray light, and made her last appeal, aimed, without her knowing it, straight at the deepest part of me. You've always been our strong one, she said. Ever since you were little. Coal falls apart. Your father's all pride. But you were always the one who could hold the family up without complaining. Her eyes filled. Don't become the one who breaks it. Please. Sign the paper. Be who you've always been for us. Just this once more. I understood she wasn't being cruel. She was telling me the truest thing she knew, that my whole worth in that house had always been my willingness to disappear under the weight of everyone else. It was the most honest thing anyone had said to me all week, and it broke my heart, and I still could not do what she asked. "Mom," I said gently, "I forgive him. I forgive all of you. But forgiveness isn't a signature." She didn't understand. I watched her not understand, and I realized the language I'd finally learned to speak was one my mother had spent her whole life making sure no one in that family could hear. After she left, I finally faced the thing I'd been avoiding my entire adult life. I had told myself for 15 years that my silence was generosity, that letting them have the credit, the story, was a gift born of love and strength. Sitting there with an envelope by my keys, I saw it for what it actually was. My silence had never protected anyone. It had funded them. Every joke I let land without answering taught Cole that dropping me cost nothing. Every time I let my father tell buyers the formula was his, I taught him that taking from me was free. Every time my mother said, "He's only teasing," and I smiled, I helped build the exact machine that had now forged my name and asked me to thank it. I hadn't been holding the family up. I'd been holding the lie up. The strong one. The one who never needed as much. That wasn't a compliment. It was a job description for a person they'd trained to absorb whatever the family didn't want to feel. The cruelest trick wasn't the forged signature. It was convincing me my own erasure was a virtue. I watched the sky go from gray to pale gold over the neighbors' roofs, and something clenched since childhood finally let go. I didn't want revenge. I want you to understand that, because it matters. I only wanted to stop being the fuel, and there is exactly one way to stop being fuel. Refuse out loud. Catch fire quietly. 2. The closing was set for 10 a.m. in the glass conference room at the plant. I walked in wearing my own coat, carrying my own envelope, and took a seat without being offered one. The buyer's team was already there. The woman with the leather portfolio, 2 lawyers, an accountant with a laptop. My father sat at the head in his best suit, expansive, gracious, the founder about to be rewarded for 42 years. My mother sat against the wall, hands folded. Cole stood near the door, phone in hand, ready to spin whatever happened into whatever the family would need it to mean. The papers were stacked and tabbed and beautiful. My father was mid-story about the early days, the vision, and the buyers were smiling, and it was all going so smoothly that for a moment I could see exactly how it would have gone if I'd never come home. Then the accountant looked up from his laptop. "Before we finalize the IP transfer, just routine, we need the inventor of the core formula to confirm the assignment on the record, standard for chain of title." He looked around. As the inventor available, every head at that table turned slowly toward me. My father's smile held, but his eyes found mine with a warning in them, and under the warning, a plea, and under both of those, absolute certainty that I would do what I had always done. The room was so quiet I could hear the HVAC breathe. I set my envelope on the glass. "That's my daughter Elena, the inventor," my father said, smooth as ever, sliding the fresh assignment toward me, the pen resting on top. "She's just confirming what she signed years ago. Go ahead, sweetheart." Everyone waited. My mother's hands tightened in her lap. Cole held his breath by the door. All I had to do was pick up the pen. I looked at it. I looked at my father, and I set the pen down and slid it back an inch toward him. "I'm not confirming it," I said. My voice didn't shake, because I never signed it. The words landed like a dropped tray. The lawyer sat forward. The accountant's fingers went still on his keys. "The assignment in your binder is dated 6 years ago, this past April," I went on, even, professional, the way I describe a room's reverb being too long. "On that date I was in Lisbon, presenting at a materials conference. I have the program, the photographs, the passport stamp, the hotel invoice. I did not sign that document. Someone signed it for me." I opened the envelope and laid my statement where the buyer's counsel could reach it. "I'm the inventor of that formula. I never assigned it, and I'm not going to ratify it now to make this deal easier." On my father's face did something I had never seen it do in 36 years. Into that silence, calm as a sealed room, I said the sentence I'd been walking toward my whole life. "I forgive you, Dad. I'm still not signing." The family recovered faster than the lawyers did, because the family had a backup plan and the lawyers didn't. Cole was across the room in 3 steps, low and urgent in my ear. Lana. Call Julian right now. One call, please. My mother stood pale, saying my name like a question. My father pivoted the whole pitch in real time, turning to the buyers with a rueful laugh. Family misunderstanding, that's all. My daughter's very well connected. Her husband's fund. I'm sure we can restructure. And I realized they were all still reaching for the same tool: use the connection, use the husband, use whatever power was nearest to make the truth go away. It would have been so easy. I could have let Julian's name enter that room and watched everything bend around it. That had always been the offer. No, I said to the whole room. He's already recusing himself. There may be a conflict, and he won't touch it, and neither will I. If you want the formula, you'll license it from me. In writing, honestly. On the record. And the company will have to answer for how my name got on a document I never signed. I felt the win and the loss arrive in the same breath. I had my name back, my voice. A marriage I'd never have to hide again. And I watched my mother look at me across that table and choose, in her silence, the name over her daughter. I let that cost land because I'd already decided to pay it. My father lost the one thing he'd held onto his whole life: his composure. He came up out of his chair, face red, voice cracking in front of the buyers. After everything this family gave you, you'd destroy it over a piece of paper. Over your pride. You always thought you were better than us. Better than the name. He slammed his hand on the glass. The name comes first. I let him finish the line this time. No, Dad? I answered quietly. The truth comes first. The name is just what you called it when you wanted us to stay quiet. He had no answer. There isn't one. Here's what I want you to notice about what happened next, because it's the part that matters most. Nobody was crushed by anyone's power. No fund swept in to punish my family. No connected husband made a call. What happened was simply that the truth, once it was on the record, did what truth does. The buyer's lawyers couldn't close on intellectual property with a broken chain of title. The deal paused for review. The formula reverted to me, its actual owner, exactly as the law had quietly always held it did. And the machine my father built, the one that ran on my silence, sputtered and stalled the moment I stopped feeding it, because it turned out it had never run on anything else. I didn't do it with leverage, or money, or a marriage, or a threat. I did it by declining to sign my name to a lie, in a quiet room, in a calm voice, one time. 2. I'd like to tell you the family fell apart, and everyone got exactly what they deserved. That's the version people want. It isn't the true one. Marsh Composites didn't vanish, it shrank. The big contract died, but a smaller, honest one came along months later. Once the records were straightened, and the title was clean. The company survived at a size that matched what it had actually earned, instead of what it had pretended to own. Ray kept his job. My father has never once admitted he was wrong. To this day he tells people I turned on the family over pride. In his own mind, he's the wounded party. The founder betrayed by an ungrateful daughter. A man who was robbed young and decided robbery was tradition cannot afford to see it any other way. My mother and I speak now and then, carefully, across a distance that no longer pretends to be closeness. She's never said she was sorry. I've stopped waiting for it. Cole is the surprise. He hasn't apologized either, not really. But he went quiet in a way that isn't his usual quiet. And months later he called just to ask how formula licensing works, and listened to the whole answer without a single joke. I don't know what that becomes. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. But for the first time in 36 years, my brother asked me a real question about my work and waited for the real answer. I stopped hiding Julian the moment I got back to Seattle. No announcement. Just an end to the secrecy. Because the reason I'd kept him hidden had finally dissolved. I'd hidden my marriage from my family for the same reason I'd hidden my initials on the back of a panels. I'd learned that anything I loved and let them see got turned into either a joke or a resource. I don't live in that house anymore. I don't have to protect my happiness by making it invisible. The other thing I did took longer. Cole has a daughter, my niece, 9 years old, sharp as a blade, already being told she's too much. Last time I saw her, she asked what I do. Instead of shrinking it down to something small, I told her the truth. That I build materials that turn chaos into quiet, that I put my own name on it, on purpose. I showed her how the compound worked. Watched her file away the idea that a woman can build something and never have to apologize for taking up the space it deserves. That's how you break a thing like this. Not by winning a war. By making sure the next quiet girl in the family knows early that she never has to disappear to be loved. Sample 0. The very first panel. Hangs in my studio in Seattle now. When the assets were sorted out, I bought it back for almost nothing. Nobody else wanted one old test piece, and my father couldn't stand to look at it. I turned it around. The front faces the wall. The back faces the room. So the first thing anyone sees when they walk in is a pale resin surface and 2 block letters, scratched, by a stylus at 2 in the morning by a 24-year-old who thought no one would ever read them. ESEMS quiet enough to trust. Clients ask about it sometimes. I tell them the whole story or the short version, depending on the day. And here's the only wisdom I have to offer after all of it. One sentence I'd carve into the back of every quiet woman's life if I could. Forgiveness does not mean signing your name to the thing that erased you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a family is refuse to disappear inside it. That's my story. A forged name, a quiet toast, a signature I never gave, and finally refused to give again. If you've ever been the strong one, the quiet one, the one who kept the peace until it started costing you your own name, ask yourself tonight whether you're keeping a peace or funding a lie. Then do the brave, quiet thing.